What's going on, guys? Coach Gaglione here. This is another edition of the Powerlifting for the People podcast. I'm your host Coach Gaglione. We got Michael Oliver on the line. Michael is one of, I'll let him introduce himself, but one of the top strict curl athletes in the country, and also, avid powerlifter. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, but how you doing today, Michael?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on the podcast. For anyone who doesn't know, my name is Michael. I'm a powerlifter in the Raw, 100% Raw Powerlifting Federation. As Mr. Coach Gaglione said, I strict curl. I also do a bit of, not a bit. I'm a pretty cool powerlifter as well, I'd say. But
Yeah.
we were talking earlier. You were mentioning, asking me when or how I started strict curl, right? Yeah. It's crazy because I started both virtually the same time through a mutual friend of Mr. Bossy and I. He introduced me as for Mr. Bossy at the time, a guest um, spotter and loader at the 2022, I think, Raw Worlds. And that's where I met him. That's where I fell in love with the sport. That's where I saw Knox for the first time. I was like, okay, this seems interesting. Bossy was boosting me up. He was like, yo, bro, you should definitely try. You know how Mr. Bossy is. And after that, I mean, it took me no less than a month to start fully powerlifting with the federation, and I've never stopped since. So, yeah, man, that's how I started.
And then do you have any other like athletic background as far as like sports growing up or anything like that?
I was a very active kid. Always wanted to play soccer. I played soccer for a bit, did a bunch of running, and just being overall very active youngin growing up. So I feel like that's what really um, helped me with my journey as a powerlifter. Just being very active growing up.
Yeah, so I definitely want to kind of dive into, how you guys train and, how you get ready for a contest and maybe just some tips and tricks and things like that. But before we kind of do that, if you want to give us some of like your iron cred, like what are some of your best, lifts in competition, and if you have like a favorite, lift, or moments that you've had as far as competing.
Okay, so let's start off with the moment. My favorite moment competing was at it was the competition after the baby cat curl here in this gym right here that we are right now, KPC, where I curled 100 kilograms. That was the most wild thing at that point. I was like, they announced it that okay, you're gonna curl 100 kilograms, and I was like, okay. I just did I think 217 before, and I was like, okay, I can do this, and it just flew. I was like, wow, I really like that right now,
Yeah.
and that was my favorite point. And then my heaviest, my best competition so far has been at Worlds, where I did my 611 squat, 363 bench, and a 716 deadlift. Those are my heaviest
Nice.
comp numbers so far. And I did 225 at that comp, but it was called. So I'm not going to count it officially, but
So
yeah, that was my heaviest curl
100,
as well.
yeah, so 100 kilograms or 220 is your best official lift.
Yes, sir. 220.
Cool. Yeah, so I'll just kind of I'll kind of throw my 2 cents in as well, and then you can chime in. So I think at the last competition in Virginia Beach that I got to see you compete at, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, and we'll have more information on this later. But it was the first kind of time we did with the Raw Federation that we had to kind of this pro division, which is kind of a new thing where it's kind of like a rising bar and stuff like that. So this was after like the main competition, and
Mm-hmm.
what was really cool, like as someone that was helping out at the meet and as a spectator and as a coach there, when it came down to like the wire and it was you and Giorgio were kind of like
Mm-hmm.
the final two lifters, kind of going at it to see who was going to be like the top dog and who was going to have like the heaviest curl of the day. And he's done some amazing things in the sport as well, so that was kind of exciting. What was that like, going like kind of, I mean, head to head against somebody of that caliber, a bigger athlete, and what was kind of going through your head when you were kind of, getting towards the last lifts of the day?
So it was for for lack of better words, I say it was like a scene out of a movie for me. I was for real, like after doing 225 on the regular strict curl, then going into that after I was fatigued. I've never done anything like that before. I've never done such a heavy lift and then go back and do heavy lifts again. But I felt my body just doing what it needed to do. And I was like, okay, I was so confident in knowing that I was gonna win regardless. I was like, this was supposed to happen how it happened. That's the only thing I could say from that situation because to this point, this is something I've never done before. So I didn't know I was capable. And yet I was fully confident in the fact that I was going to win. So yeah, man, it was a
Yeah.
great experience.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of a cool thing to watch. And then again, it was the cool thing about like that concept. And like I said, we're still kind of refining it. And like I know myself and Knox and you mentioned, Paul and among others, we're kind of discussing on like kind of, fleshing everything out, making things a little bit more just very clear for the athletes and the fans and everything. But I think definitely the idea of like a rising bar, kind of like a strongman competition that you've seen that like with a deadlift, for example, and it makes it very easy for like the spectators to kind of follow what's going on, and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of builds up this excitement and anticipation, kind of going
Mm-hmm.
who's going to be like the last man or woman standing. So that was really cool, and I'm kind of excited to see that in the future. So awesome. So yeah, so going back to like, kind of your training and stuff. And you kind of mentioned, and I think this is something where a lot of people might have the misconception that the strict curl is kind of just a very basic lift. It doesn't me, they might think it's just kind of like just a bro lift. You kind of just pick it up. There's really not much to it. But the way that you guys, especially, at KPC, and all your kind of fellow teammates and training partners, um, you guys have a unique style and kind of technique, which has proven to be, world class, and a lot of the best lifters coming out of that gym. So it's definitely a proven technique and something I've been trying to pick your guys' brain with and kind of learn and kind of adopt to some of our lifters. So I guess maybe what are some like I guess misconceptions about like maybe the lift itself, and then when you first started learning more of the technical, like the skill component of it, what was that kind of like for you when you were just starting to learn, the technique?
I got you. So I started on the OBZ. I don't think what is it called, the OBZ
Yeah,
30.
yeah, yeah,
And with the OBZ 30, it's more or less a bro lift, I'd say, in comparison to the gopher. The gopher is way more technical, but once you learn the technique that we've that Bruce established, it's also equivalent to the how I felt with the OBZ for me. But with me, with my journey with the gopher bar, it started as everyone else started. The ball was hanging downwards. I was holding it wherever. I was just trying to get a good grip on there, and I was just trying to bro curl it. And I realized that, hey, first off, it was ripping my hands apart,
yeah,
ripping my hands apart, and the weight just felt 10 times heavier the way I had it. So when I just started on the OBZ, let me go back. I was working out at Fitness Warehouse. And that was before I was working with Bruce and all that. But I would see Bruce a lot on Instagram, and I would always be training strict curl because I found out I was good at it. So I was always trying to get better at it for myself, and I was taking information from Bruce, from John Cooper, from Bossy, and everyone around me. So I found out after I think after spotting and loading at a competition that a more optimal grip for the gopher would be to have it with the W formation rather than the M formation. You get what I'm saying? And having a more neutral grip rather than a wide versus a more narrow grip. So that was all through trial and error and observation of people that like Knox that are way better at this lift than I was at the time. So yeah, and through that, through a lot of practice, through trial and error, I found out that I need to pull the bar as close to me as possible and driving the shoulders up, dropping them at the right time for it to feel fluid. It's all from experience. That's something that you yourself would have to develop for yourself because you can get the basic premise of the lift from Knox, but your body is different from Knox and vice versa. You see what I'm saying? So you're gonna have to figure it out as you apply those basic understanding of the lift.
yeah. And I think with the KPC technique and how you guys lift, and again, I'm trying my best to emulate it, and it definitely requires a lot more skill and timing. And because one of the things I think that a lot of people might find interesting, you kind of mentioned that, you know, 100 kilograms, 220 pounds kind of flew. And when you get the technique right and the bar path is correct and you get the timing right, a lot of times you kind of, it looks like you kind of smoked the lift, but much
Mm-hmm.
like you ever watch like a weightlifter do like a clean and jerk or a snatch or something like that. Um, it looks effortless when the technique is like correct.
Mm-hmm. On
So
point.
it
Yes.
does require a lot of speed and effort and all those things. But when you nail it right, it's like and then consequently, if you do get a little bit out of the groove, if it does get a little,
Hmm.
a lot of times it kind of just dies
That's
out
it.
really fast and there's really no like
Yeah.
fighting it. So sometimes if there's like a mic, sometimes you might, okay, like maybe like one hand is a little bit,
Hmm.
you kind of have to reel it back in. But most of the times what I've seen too, and even with myself, it's either you kind of like hit it right or there's not really much you could kind of do to save it. And then it's good to recognize that also as an athlete. Sometimes it's better off, okay, this isn't going. I'm just gonna
Hmm.
save my energy and not like, kind of do that. So that's kind of like a little bit of a little insight that I've kind of trying to like also remind myself
Hmm.
as I'm kind of starting to train for it and do all those things. Um, so outside of just like kind of practicing the technique, was there any other, I guess, exercises or the way that you guys program or kind of structure your workouts that you kind of found particularly helpful? I know like one of the things when I visit, and again, you could obviously chime in and so one of the things that I found was very interesting but made a lot of sense when I visited KPC for the first time. Outside of also just doing like, direct bicep work and back work and trap work and things like that, kind of working the individual muscle groups. One of the other things I thought was very interesting was, the use of like an exercise like a snatch grip
High
pull,
pull.
and where you're trying to like incorporate, use the back in a more dynamic way, also train
Hmm.
your explosiveness, become a little bit of a better athlete, not just kind of use a lot of brute force, but also be powerful. So
Hmm.
with
And
any
rhythm. It teaches
movements,
a lot of rhythm as well. That
yeah,
movement.
and the timing is like so important.
Yes.
Were there any kind of like movements that you kind of felt like helped you like
That
current
that would be
position?
the one. The snatch grip hypo would be the most recommended if you're trying to grow your strict curl. It strengthens your back. It gives you a lot of proper mind muscle connection with your back muscles, so you can feel it when you're on the platform. You can keep your shoulders locked down with your chest up while moving through the movement, which helps you to keep on the padding more and prevent a lot of that forward motion that a lot of lifters fall prey to. So the snatch grip hypo, and it helps with your biceps, your traps, all of those things that help with the technique that we Bruce developed here. So yeah, they go hand in hand. If in order for you to get better at this, you have to also get better at the snatch grip high pull.
That's one thing that I've kind of noticed was sometimes if there is an advantage for some of like the athletes that are, you're still a larger athlete, but so sometimes after like 220, 242, there tends to be like a little bit of a drop off with how
Tech.
much more people can do at like super heavyweight 308 and things of that nature. And what I've kind of found is just at least an observation that those guys might be like kind of brute stronger, like if in like a lifting sense, but sometimes the lighter weight class lifters have a little bit of a better technique. They have a little bit more mobility. They might have a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more power and athleticism. So even if you are a larger athlete, if you can, have a little bit more mobility, a little bit more athletic,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more power into your lift, I think that could be something to, certainly look
It
into.
definitely only adds to your strength as a powerlifter, I'd say, in my opinion. To have all of those things definitely are beneficial. And I feel like a lot of people don't think so. They think it takes away from their strength to be mobile or whatever. They say, oh, you might risk injury like that, but it only helps you to get in the best position to carry out the lift as efficiently and optimally as possible. So
Any
yeah.
other kind of, I guess, programming considerations for like say when you're getting ready for a excuse me, when you're getting ready for a contest specifically,
Hmm.
when do things start to kind of ramp up? How many days a week are you doing some sort of like strict curl movement? What does that kind of like look like for you guys?
So we don't usually change the how many times a week. We train strict curl is usually around twice a week,
Two times.
at the beginning and at the end of the week, just to program everything else in between and with the lift. Because we try to give strict curl a day for itself, or 2 days at least, so we can really focus in on technique, on optimizing the strength and the rhythm of the movement, all of those things. And as we approach a competition per se, like 4 weeks out, we start decreasing the volume to like sets of three, sets of two, and
Lower
we start jumping. Go ahead.
lower repetition work.
Lower repetition work. So it's very similar to how you would ramp up into a competition for like the big three. But we have like we stop doing the the volume a little earlier in comparison to like a deadlift. We start ramping up and then we stop, let's say like a week or so before a competition just to rest up and ramp into the competition. So yeah, it's lower volume, higher weight, and before the comp you take a little break, to
And
put
then
it simply.
very good. And then other stuff that I kind of noticed, I just want to again hear your take was um if you, the use of maybe some, cluster training or halted reps or like, doing a touch and go versus like dead stop in the bottom. I guess any
Mm.
advice for implementing like some differences in like that sort of tempo or like or anything that you've kind of found like helpful for yourself.
For me, I was very stubborn because Bruce would tell me to try and incorporate some of the touch and go, but because I love the technique so much, I'm always trying to pause at the bottom and really just focus on the technique. And I try to do it as fast as possible. I always have that pause just so I can enter the hole efficiently. I've never been able to just
Gotcha.
efficiently. I can, but I just feel like that quick movement at all is kind of counterintuitive to the lift for me. I feel like that burst of movement should be in my accessories, like my snatch grip high pull. But for my strict curl, I'm much. I like the to start from a stop position and really just focus on everything just coming back up. You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think for people starting out, I think doing like, like I think, Bruce and others like would kind of, call those like a halted rep or like a dead stop
Mm-hmm.
rep. And I think and it's something I have to like remind myself too. Sometimes the really good thing that I found, and same thing if like you're benching as well, like if you don't practice a start command, if you don't practice, you're not going to get used to that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a judge might hold you a little longer
Mm-hmm.
than you might like. So it's good to kind of get ready for those for like a contest situation.
Got to.
So I think that's
Always prepared.
really good advice. So, um, even just like little things like, and you could comment on this, like, videoing yourself from the side, make sure your butt is actually like on the bench, make sure your back stays on the bench. Cause sometimes you may feel like you are, but then when you watch the video.
Mm-hmm.
So any other like tips for someone maybe that's preparing for their first competition, in terms of things to look out for, or maybe mistakes that you've made, when you were starting out?
So one mistake that I made that stays with me is dropping the bar too quickly because I used to train like throw it up, put it down. You know what I'm saying? And as we know, we got to wait for the down command for the comp. So at Massachusetts, where I did that 202 the first time, the my 198 because I was training just to throw up the weight and not care about it. I would throw it up, and before the down command was said, I already put it back in. I know that okay. So that's something we need to stop. We need to really focus on, as you said, practicing listening to the commands and following the commands for your lift. Another one for me, I feel like not something I made a mistake with, but something I found in my journey is use the feeling of the lift and the visuals from your recording equivalently. You need to watch the video and remember how you felt. And if those coincide and you felt good, then okay, this is how I should look, and this is how I should, and if I'm doing it and I feel this way, this is how I'm looking. If you take different angles, so if you take different angles, watch your video, study how you lift, and incorporate that, and keep mental and physical documentation of all of those things, it will help your journey immensely. So
Excellent.
yeah, don't think of it as being. A lot of people make it look like it's a weird thing to record your lifts. I feel like it's the most beneficial thing as a athlete because we're visual creatures. We see things. We see how other people lift. We try to incorporate. But if we don't know how what we look like, we know what we feel like. But sometimes, as you say, what we feel like is not really optimal. But you can see what it looks like though, and it helps.
Yeah, I've found for myself, I take a lot of video and training, and I don't always post, like it's not just for posting. I think that's kind of like a common misconception, at least for like this new crop of lifters, this new like next
Mm-hmm.
generation. But yeah, being able to like look at your last warm up before your working sets, look at your last warm up before like your top set. And sometimes I've even found with myself, sometimes, you're stressed, you're tired, whatever. You're like, man, that didn't feel so good. But then you watch the video,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it
And it
actually
flew.
looked pretty
Yeah,
good.
and it gives you confidence. Yeah.
Or like on the flip side, sometimes it's like, oh, that felt good, but oh, my butt came up a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then I got to make an adjustment, or
Now you can make an adjustment.
let
Yeah.
me let me retake that weight and
Mm-hmm.
and then clean it up. So
Yeah.
I think that's really
Positive from either end. Yeah. Because it
um,
either provides confidence to go into your top set or it provides insight into what may be lowering your number. So,
yeah, I like that. It could provide video feedback can provide confidence, or at the very least insight. I think that's
mm-hmm.
well said. So
Sure.
last piece I want to kind of ask you about is maybe just maybe your thoughts on things that you'd like to see, whether it's, something in the pro division, like more head-to-head competition, um, just maybe the growth of the sport. Like, what are some things that you'd like to see as far as maybe just more athlete participation? I'm just kind of, where would you like to see the sport go? And
Always more athlete participation. I'm always looking forward to seeing strong lifters come into the sport. As of like how the sport is being run, I'm very pleased with how TC and Bossy are doing with the strict curl. I trust his judgment, TC, when it comes to the how the movement is going, the lifting for the strict curl competition is going. So everything else I'm cool with. But if we can try to get more people into the sport through individual effort, I think that we should definitely be doing that as lifters in the sport that love the sport as we do. But yeah.
excellent, man. So yeah, just a couple other kind of quick announcements, and we'll provide information in the description. We will have some kind of contests coming up in the Mid-Atlantic region. I know that KPC is going to host their American Challenge like sometime in June. Like I said, we'll kind of put the links in the description. We're planning on hosting a strict curl contest. That'll be, through 100% raw at the end of May. And then also I'm going to be starting to host RPS competitions as well. So
Mm,
if people are not able to do a tested competition for whatever reason, they'll be tested in untested divisions for that. And then our first one for this year is going to be in July. And then we have
mm.
another one in New York in August as well. So we're definitely trying to grow the sport. And then also want to stay tuned for more information on seminars and clinics and stuff like that. For Michael, if people like want to follow along your journey and what you're doing, where can people find you?
Yes, sir. My Instagram is, thank you very much, by the way. My Instagram is kingmichael_1. Yeah, that's pretty much where I post all my stuff. I do also have a TikTok. It's Michael Oliver 5_5. You can check that out as well. That's where I have my most viewed video on strict curl. So yeah, you can check that out as well.
Sure,
And
that'd
I
be
might
good.
be starting a YouTube soon. I'll tell you all about that
Yeah,
later.
that'd be
But
good.
yes, sir. I wanted to thank you for doing what you're doing with the sport. You've really been providing a lot of information to people that may have never known about the sport or people that just want more information on the sport. So, yeah, well done, man.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I think Bruce, especially KPC, people like John Cooper. Those are the kind of the people that I kind of like learned from initially. I think they've been kind of doing this the longest, and like I said, I'm just trying to kind of pay it forward. I've had a lot of experience as a powerlifting coach and as a powerlifter since 2006, so it's kind of cool to like kind of just go into a new venture, try something a little slightly different. There is a lot of
Hmm.
crossover and things to be learned from powerlifting, but to me, it just definitely feels like a new just it's not a completely new venture, but it's almost like it's nice to kind of be a beginner again in some sense and
Yeah, I
has a
get
lot of
exactly what
knowledge
you're
and
saying.
it's kind of fun. So I'm kind of excited. I wish, I'm trying to like not see what you guys are doing and just kind of stay in my lane and just kind of chip away. But I do feel like I'm starting to kind of build some momentum and I'm excited to just be along the journey with you guys and definitely kind of I think the biggest thing like we kind of talked about before is definitely support your local competitions, definitely support your gyms. And like I said, there'll be links in the description for all that kind of information. You can definitely check out the 100% Raw website. They have the most strict curl opportunities for competition on the tested side. And then on Revolution Powerlifting, all of our RPS meets as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stay strong, and then we'll see you soon.
Yes, sir.